Ichungwa. Order, honorable members, the House is still in session. Order. Order, honorable members. Sabina Chega and your team, take your seats or go to wherever you're going.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I've listened to the Leader of Minority, and I'm glad he asserts that he's a member of the House Business Committee, and I can also confirm he was in the House Business Committee this morning, rather this lunch hour, and these are some of the issues that would have transacted in the House Business Committee, and he did not raise it, since the order paper was already published. Even by the time we were in House Business, there was an indication of the business that is lined up for debate tomorrow, right from the morning sitting to the afternoon sitting. And having listened to the issues, Honorable Speaker, it's also true that this debate began last week, and I'm also aware that quite a number of members have been in discussions with the chair of the committee proposing various amendments. And members, I know there are also quite a number of members who have already filed their amendments, proposed amendments. And therefore, since it's now 5 p.m., Honorable Speaker, and we have up to tomorrow, and occasionally, Honorable Speaker, the Speaker has allowed members to even file amendments on the floor, and they are considered in the afternoon for anybody who may want to file even over lunch hour. And the clerk's office can also publish a supplementary order paper. Honorable Speaker, I would prevail on you that we transact business as approved by the House Business Committee, since the Leader of Minority was within his right to propose that particular change within the House Business before approval of the business of the week by the House Business Committee. Otherwise, we will now be on the verge of retransacting the business that was before the House Business Committee in plenary, which will not set a very good precedent. I would rather, Honorable Speaker, that we give members up to tomorrow 1 p.m. to file the amendments. Those that may want to file amendments, especially any member who was not there on Thursday and who was not here today and may want to file an amendment. But I am certain, having checked with the clerk's office, there are already members who have filed amendments. And once the order paper is published, should there be any other amendments that anybody wants to file, we can give them up to 1 p.m. tomorrow, and we publish a supplementary order paper with your approval, Honorable Speaker. Otherwise, I would strongly oppose delaying of this business, Honorable Speaker, beyond the time that was agreed on in the House Business Committee.
As Honorable Andai and your majority colleague, you both sit in the House Business Committee. You know what we passed. However, in accordance with our standing orders, I'll direct that any member who has any amendments to file, your deadline is noon tomorrow. Once you have filed in all the amendments, then the clerk will be directed to prepare a supplementary order paper to accommodate every filed amendment. If the weight of the amendments are such that you need a winnowing process, I will have a consultation with both of you to see what we need to do. Otherwise, the matter will remain on the order paper for committee of the whole tomorrow afternoon. Next order.
Order number 9, motion, report of the National Dialogue Committee.
Honorable members, order number 9, the report will be debated in accordance with the motions we passed on the management of our time. It is allocated 2.5 hours. The majority and minority leaders have 10 minutes each. Each other member speaking has 5 minutes. Depending on the nature of interest and depending on how repetitious you would be in your contributions, the House Business Committee agreed that we may reduce the time to 3 minutes. per member. But as it is, you passed a motion, that motion of this nature, 2.5 hours, 10 minutes for majority, 10 minutes for minority, 5 minutes for each contributor. So, Majority Leader, you are called upon to move the motion. I see names already on the screen. If they are not for this motion, wipe them out and log in afresh so that we give everybody a fair chance to contribute. Majority Leader.
Majority Leader. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move the adoption of the National Dialogue Committee's report, or what was christened NADCO. And this report, Honorable Speaker, came, Honorable Speaker, sorry, I beg to move that this House adopts the report of the National Dialogue Committee, which was laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 7th December 2023. Honorable Speaker, I was saying this report culminated from a long process that began with the bipartisan talks that were co-chaired by the Honorable Murugara and the Honorable Otiende Omolo. Let me take this opportunity to thank those two members and the members of the bipartisan team that formed the basis of our talks, Honorable Speaker, because we benefited immensely from the work that the two gentlemen had begun through the bipartisan talks. Honorable Speaker, allow me to also take this opportunity to thank the Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, my co-chair, and the leader of the delegation from the Azimio side, and ably assisted by the leader of minority, and also thank the other members of the committee, including my deputy, the Honorable Cecily Mbarire, the governor for Embu County, the Honorable Aaron Cheruyot, Honorable Hassan Omar, the Honorable Eugene Wamalwa, Honorable Amina Mnyazi, and of course I've mentioned the leader of my minority, the Honorable Pio Wandai. Honorable Speaker, this report, or rather the NADCO committee, considered all the 5 issues that we had agreed. And you remember, Honorable Speaker, many of us had other issues besides the 5 issues, and we framed our issues around 5 thematic areas: on electoral justice and related matters, outstanding constitutional matters, fidelity to political parties and coalitions, and the law on multi-party democracy, entrenching of funds into the Constitution, and those issues. And I don't to dwell into all the recommendations that came out of the report. Members, you remember, is a very bulky report that also factored in memoranda and submissions from many Kenyans. Honorable Speaker, we were able to listen to very many Kenyans who submitted memoranda to us, from about 258 written memoranda that were sent to the committee. 60 stakeholders appeared before the committee, and we listened to over 704 persons. And that tells you, Honorable Speaker, that this report factored in views from very many Kenyans from across the country. Honorable Speaker, we also have a retinue of proposals on legislative instruments or statutory instruments that emanated from this report. And Honorable Speaker, we have a total of 9 legislative instruments or legislative proposals that we shall be submitting to Parliament for publication upon the adoption of this report. And key among these legislative proposals, Honorable Speaker, touch on IEBC, on electoral justice and electoral reforms, Honorable Speaker. And there are quite a number of legislative proposals, beginning with the reconstitution of the IEBC panel. We have proposed amendments to the IEBC Act of 2011 to provide that the selection panel, Honorable Speaker, will be reconstituted. And Honorable Speaker, you remember the courts only a few weeks ago, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, in trying to cure the lacuna that exists in law, because you know the panel as it is today, Honorable Speaker, has no timelines, and they could take forever, Honorable Speaker. But with the amendment, besides reconstituting the IBC panel and growing the membership from 7 to 9 members to ensure that we have a cross-section of views and interest groups accommodated within the selection panel, we are also creating a timeline, and the panel will now be required to finalize the exercise within 90 days. From the day that the panel is appointed, they must complete the work and submit the nominees to the president, and they shall stand dissolved thereafter. Honorable Speaker, we have also allowed the Parliament, both houses, using a simple majority, the latitude to extend time for this panel should they need more time than the 90 days that will be provided for under the new act, should we adopt or rather enact the legislative proposal that amends the IBC Act of 2011. Honorable Speaker, it is also noteworthy that the committee has recommended a transitional clause to provide that the selection panel existing immediately at the commencement date of the act will cease to exist, but any person who is working in that panel is eligible to be renominated by any of the nominating bodies, Honorable Speaker. So therefore, for instance, the political parties liaison committee that had 2 nominees, they will now have 3 nominees under the new panel, and any of the nominees that were under that selection panel could be renominated by the political parties liaison committee, or in that case, even those under the Parliamentary Service Commission, they can renominate the same people. Those under LSK can, if the selection bodies desire, they can renominate the same people. Honorable Speaker, critical among the other changes, Honorable Speaker, is a recommendation by the committee to Article 89 of the Constitution on delimitation of boundaries. Honorable Speaker, again, you know the courts have also pronounced themselves on the question of delimitation of boundaries, and we had a statutory deadline that lapses at the end of March, which is only next month, Honorable Speaker. And it is therefore not practical under the circumstances to be able to delimit boundaries within a period of a few weeks after the adoption of this report. And therefore, we are proposing that Article 89 of the Constitution is amended to provide for extension of the period for conduct of the review of the constituency's boundaries by IBC, where for any reason, like the case is this time, the review of the names and boundaries of constituencies is not completed within the time stipulated under Article 89(2) of the Constitution. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, we shall also be bringing those amendments. Honorable Speaker, on audit of the 2022 presidential elections, we did engage in this matter, and we agreed that in line with the constitutional provisions, Honorable Speaker, that we evaluate all our presidential and election processes. We agreed that we shall not be reviewing since the presidential election was settled, and that is a matter now beyond us, Honorable Speaker, and settled by the Supreme Court. But we shall, in line with our constitutional provisions, be evaluating, or rather have a process of an evaluation of the 2022 electoral process, so that, Honorable Speaker, we ensure that future elections, beginning with the 2027 elections, Kenyans are certain that the election results are credible, and the entire electoral process, right from registration of voters, Honorable Speaker, up to the time votes are tallied and winners announced, be it for MCA all the way to governor and presidential elections, that Kenyans can be certain that those elections have followed a process that ensures the entire process is credible, Honorable Speaker. And that, Honorable Speaker, we have created in the report a mechanism where we shall, within 21 days after adoption of this report, have a system where we have a panel that will identify either one firm or 2 firms to conduct an evaluation process of the last elections, Honorable Speaker, with a view to improving on the systems, because this is what our Constitution provides for, that after every election we shall, IBC actually is mandated under our Constitution to ensure that they have a system that evaluates that electoral process with a view to enhancing or rather to making the processes, the electoral processes, more efficient and more credible election after election. Honorable Speaker, on outstanding constitutional matters, there are issues that touch on 2/3 gender rule, and I know many of our lady members of parliament have been very keen on this issue. I do know, Honorable Speaker, that there was a ministerial working team on this aspect, and indeed, we did recommend that on the 2/3 gender rule, the committee recommended that the multi-sectoral working group on the realization of the 2/3 gender rule under the Ministry of Public Service, Gender and Affirmative Action finalizes its work and recommend a framework of implementation of the 2/3 gender principle and submit its report to Parliament for consideration. And Honorable Speaker, I had an engagement this afternoon with Honorable Sabina Chege, the party leader of Jubilee, who has been very keen in pursuing this matter. And she has indicated to me that following the meeting we had yesterday between our parliamentary group and the cabinet yesterday in Naivasha, indeed the Ministry of Gender, Ministry of Public Service, Gender and Affirmative Action has indicated to our lady members of parliament that they have indeed concluded this and they have a report ready, and we shall be engaging with the cabinet secretary to be able to relay that report so that as we adopt this report, Honorable Speaker, we can have that report from the multi-sectoral team form part of the legislative proposals that will come as a consequence of this NADCO report. And we shall be engaging with the Minister, Honorable Aisha, to have that ready. Honorable Speaker, on the cost of living, Honorable Speaker, because this is again, maybe before I get to the cost of living, Honorable Speaker, on entrenching of funds into the Constitution, we did recommend that NGCDF, because of the critical role it plays together with NGAF and the Senate Oversight Fund, that they be entrenched into our Constitution, Honorable Speaker, and more importantly, on the Ward Development Fund, to ensure that all our MCAs in our constituencies and in our wards have access to a Ward Development Fund, Honorable Speaker, and every ward, no MCA, will have to kneel before a governor to be able to access development funds to their wards. We also recommended that the Ward Development Fund be established by statute in accordance with Article 207, sub-Article 4B of the Constitution, to ensure that our wards and our ward representatives are also able to carry out their work of oversight over their governors without anybody cajoling them or intimidating them that they will miss out on development funds for their wards. And Honorable Speaker, MCAs will now be able, upon adoption of this report and upon enactment of the requisite legislative proposals, to be able to have development funds allocated to their respective wards. Honorable Speaker, on establishment of entrenchment of state offices, we also did agree on the establishment of the office of the leader of the official opposition and that of the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, I know those within the Azimio coalition, since they are now the official opposition, they will agree on who will take over that position, Honorable Speaker. And I wish them all the best as in that endeavor. Honorable Speaker, on the cost of living, because, Honorable Speaker, the question of the cost of living is one of the matters that we dealt with at length, and there were many proposals that were submitted to us by many stakeholders, including, Honorable Speaker, as I said when I moved the affordable housing bill, on the question of whether to be able to help our economy to recover, we have an opportunity to have an aggressive investment in huge infrastructure projects, Honorable Speaker, and we are able to engage with economists of repute, including those from the SID, who submitted to the committee, Honorable Speaker, that even developed countries like the Republic of Germany, after the Second World War, they had an aggressive investment of huge infrastructural investments, Honorable Speaker, to help the economy to recover. And we did, for those of us who subscribe to the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto, submit before NADCO that part of that endeavor is this housing agenda. And I am glad that even those of our colleagues in the Azimio coalition do agree with us, including the former Prime Minister, that housing as an agenda is critical at this particular time in our republic, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, too, on the question of the cost of living, Honorable Speaker, there are many proposals, many good proposals that came from the Azimio coalition, and some, in fact, 90% of what was submitted by the Azimio coalition before NADCO on the cost of living, we are able to adopt those proposals, touching on some of the levies that touch on the cost of fuel in this country. Honorable Speaker, we had also points of divergence on principle, Honorable Speaker, and we respectfully agreed that because some of the proposals they had are proposals that touch on their manifesto in Azimio, especially on the question of subsidies and consumption subsidies. And we were able to push our case, and we were able to agree with our colleagues in the Azimio coalition that on the question of consumer subsidies, they allow the government of the day to implement the manifesto that they sold to the people of Kenya that had nothing to do with consumer subsidies, but had everything to do with production subsidies, Honorable Speaker. And I am glad, Honorable Speaker, today, as we speak, months after the very heated engagements that we had in NADCO, including some like the Honorable Eugene Wamalwa, pretending to have walked away on the last minute, Honorable Speaker. And I say pretending because Honorable Eugene Wamalwa was part of the engagements in NADCO up to and including the very last meeting on the Friday before the actual signing. And when he excused himself to travel to Kinshasa, he had indicated he'd come back to sign that report the day after. And let me thank all the members of the NADCO committee because they all signed, except the Honorable Eugene Wamalwa. And on the question of the prices of unga, which I know is what was being sold then, I am saying I am glad that today, Honorable Speaker, as we engage in the debate on this report, Honorable Speaker, nobody in this country today, including my colleagues in Azimio, none of them today speaks about the cost of unga when they talk about the cost of living today, Honorable Speaker. I am glad that what we told them in NADCO and what we have told them before, that production subsidies do work. And it is a proven theory in economics that production subsidies give you better results and more lasting results than consumption subsidies. Today, Honorable Speaker, the price of unga that was at 260, I saw yesterday somebody posted one of the groups, one of the brands, today retailing at 114 shillings without consumption subsidies, Honorable Speaker. Farmers, patriotic farmers in this country, Honorable Speaker, courtesy of the subsidized fertilizer, have produced millions of bags that they would never have produced, Honorable Speaker, had they not accessed the subsidized fertilizer that was going for 7,000 shillings only a year ago, but today, a year and a half ago, Honorable Speaker, but today they're able to access fertilizer at a price of 2,500 shillings. And that is what has brought down the cost of living, Honorable Speaker, in the terms of the price of unga. And I'm glad those of our friends who donned sufurias on their heads, today their sufurias are very busy in their kitchens with unga at 114 shillings, Honorable Speaker. And some of the most expensive brands retailing at 140 shillings, brands that were going at a price of 278 when we were being pushed to go for fertilizer subsidies, for consumption subsidies, Honorable Speaker. Let me, Honorable Speaker, without belaboring a lot of these things much, because the report has been debated even in the public fora, plead with all of us to adopt this report. Is a product of a very fruitful bipartisan engagement, Honorable Speaker. The spirit of NADCO was to ensure that never again, Honorable Speaker, in this country, shall we ever have to fight.
Mr. Speaker, the majority leader is about to wind up, but did you hear him saying that unga, the cost of unga has reduced From which shop, may I ask, from which shops in Nairobi does the majority leader shop from, where the cost of unga is reduced to 140? May I ask, although perhaps I'm going to different shops.
First of all, this is not question time. Carry on. There, you are prosecuting your point of order wrongly. You're asking questions instead of asking whether he's in order to say what he's saying.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And you know, Honorable Speaker, I was careful because I'm not in the business of promoting brands. But I have just seen it was the Honorable Ruku who shared the photo of one of the brands retailing in a supermarket in Nairobi at 114 shillings. You could share that picture with Honorable TJ. Honorable Speaker, in conclusion, I was saying this NADCO process, Honorable Speaker, was informed by the desire by all Kenyans to engage in our politics in a way that is devoid of violence, Honorable Speaker. And I am glad that we were able to transact business in NADCO in a very civil manner, in a spirit of give and take, and the Honorable Opio will bear me witness that even the most difficult questions within NADCO, we were able to deal with them in a very good way, in a very civil way, without anybody throwing words at each other and being able to engage. And the whole spirit, Honorable Speaker, of the National Dialogue Committee was that spirit of dialogue. And we did indicate, Honorable Speaker, even as we engaged, that that is a desire of every Kenyan, that whether it is problems that emanate from our electoral processes, whether it is problems that come from the cost of living, never again shall Kenyans have to engage in violence, but we shall be able to dialogue with each other, talk to each other, Honorable Speaker, and be able to resolve all issues that are of concern to us as Kenyans in an amicable manner through dialogue. Honorable Speaker, with those many remarks, see my time is over. I beg to move and plead with all of us to support this report, adopt it, so that we allow the House to be able to be seized of the legislative proposals that have far-reaching effects, especially those that touch on our electoral processes and the challenges that bedevil our IEBC and the delimitation of boundaries. With those many remarks, I beg to move and request the Honorable Leader of Minority, the Honorable Pio Wandai, the NADCO Deputy Delegation Leader of the Azimio Coalition, to second.
Yes, Honorable Ruku, what is...